Pharah and Lifeweaver are being played together in professional Overwatch, and it isn't a troll pick. I'm going to break down this comp and tell you how it plays, why they play it, and if it's any good. So, to start, let's talk about why are we even here? Why are we even playing Pharah? Pharah has not been seen as a very strong pick, but after this mid-season cycle with all of these big, crazy tank changes, Pharah has kind of shown back up a little bit. Actually, not even a little bit. They played her a lot over this season. I'm going to play you just a little bit of this map here, just because I want to talk about like why is Pharah good? Like, why are these teams playing Pharah? I think she is pretty map dependent, but the big thing that happened was that Pharah is much better against armor now. Because she doesn't get a flat reduction on her damage, she only loses 5. She can actually do much better against tanks and have like an actual big DPS impact on those characters. Even though she can't displace the tanks as much, which we'll actually get into in a second, she still can have a very big impact. On this map in particular, you're seeing the Pharah because she has all of these high grounds to play with. So much like space to work with. It's really hard to pin her down to find where she's coming from. And she's just basically doing more damage overall because of those armor reduction. Now, you may also be thinking, well, Pharah has the concussive mine, or the concussive blast, but it should be weaker against tanks, right? Because they don't get knocked back as far. I actually think that because tanks don't get knocked back as far, concussive blast actually got buffed, because you would be playing against these brawl core, right? You see both teams are playing a brawl style. They've got a Lucio and then either Bap Kiri and then like a Cass with their brawl tank, which in this case is Mauga, right? Originally, if Pharah were to try to concuss a core, the tank would go as far as everybody else. So if she messed up, right, and the tank, they all flew back the same way, they would still all be together in a brawl core, and they'd be able to help each other. This is better for more like Ram, honestly, like Ram and Reinhardt, right? Like, you can protect your team with their abilities better if they're all stacked up together. However, now that the tank doesn't go as far, it actually displaces the squishy part, or the squishies, and the tank further away from each other. So it's harder to actually protect them from the onslaught of damage that is coming their way. And that's a great way for another brawl core, like the Mauga, whatever, to go in and find the chaos that they need to finish up the fight, right? So Pharah has just gotten much better against this meta. Also, it's kind of perceived right now that Hitscan isn't as good. I think Cass is just a really good sustainable pick. And he is kind of also there to keep the Pharahs in check and keep the flankers in check, really. But yeah, that's kind of like, that's how Pharah has been showing up. She's she's anti-brawl, although she is being played in brawl comp. She is kind of there to disrupt those brawl cores and to cause a lot of chaos during rotations, right? So let's talk about the actual comp of the hour. That is Pharah Lifeweaver. Now, what the hell is even going on? How are they playing Lifeweaver in professional play? This character is supposed to be really bad, and he is. But the Pharah strat, or really it's Pharah is the reason that Lifeweaver is here in the first place, right? So what you're going to see right here is that they opt to use the Lifeweaver here because it actually enables the Pharah a lot. Outside of like the very basic things like Lifeweaver can pull Pharah if she gets in too close, which is not actually how they use pull in this comp. Or Lifeweaver can very consistently heal Pharah, which is, that's actually a big thing. At a long range, he can always get this really big burst on her to keep her alive. Outside of that, though, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So you've noticed here, and we're going to watch another map later, we're on Circuit Royale on defense. That is where this comp was played primarily. It was basically only ever brought out here, except for one other map, and on defense, because basically it limits the angles that the enemy team can take on the Pharah. And because Pharah's cover here, there's a lot of vertical cover, but it's in the lanes, right? Pharah can't go over top of the buildings. She can only spam down the lanes. And what you're going to notice here is, you see that petal right here? Look who took it. Do you see that? It wasn't anybody else trying to get their their angle or anything. It's actually the Pharah that keeps taking the petal. And what you're going to see a little later on is that the reason why this is the case is because it means that Pharah can get up to a higher altitude without having to burn her cooldowns, so she can stay up there longer and have this big damage pressure. You can see the tip of the health bar over there. That is Stalker raining down over this core. Now, also, again, remember how we were talking about Pharah's pretty anti-brawl? They knew that Ents, the team here, they're playing a Sigma comp, but they are playing a brawlier version of it. And I'm pretty sure that's why we're seeing the Pharah here. I think against like a regular pokey comp, you wouldn't want to play Pharah because she's much more liable to getting sniped out of the air. But since they are kind of trying to do this brawl variant of it, I feel like this Pharah Lifeweaver comp is much more in counter to that. But you see over there, Pharah is up there, the petal is gone, but she's still in the air. She's still able to stay in the air. And by the time that you saw it come there, by the time that she loses all of her altitude and everything, all of her cooldowns have been used, petal is back up. So basically you can keep Pharah in the air at this great height without having to use any sort of resources. That is very, very big for this composition, right? It's very big to keep the Pharah up. And if they get past the corner, which they have, they didn't successfully disrupt them, there's this right here. This sign is really good cover for Pharah too, right? So she can do the exact same thing. She was using the bridge before and the petal, and we'll see that a little later. The petal also provides her aerial cover, which is really important. But basically, she's got good cover to work with on these points. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead. There you go. We get the Pharah POV here, right? You see she's hugging this corner, watching her flanks, just being careful. It looks like she had to back out. But yeah, there she goes. She goes back in. Basically, just hug the wall, right? Hug the wall. There you go. She takes the petal again, and boom, back right to it. She finds a really good kill. There you go. She's using the petal here. This is a good instance of her using the petal for her own protection, right? She lands back on it. They're turning to look at her, but it's actually like Vestola's Sigma balls are hitting the petal, and she's perfectly fine. She uses it to blast away just to keep herself safe one more time. And then there you go. She uses the corner. She uses the sign, and she's not over aggressing. She's using her range on this map and not pushing her advantage too far, right? Now, eventually, Ents are actually going to be able to break this. They get pushed back a little too far. It looks like Chio had to use his petal aggressively, or not aggressively, defensively for himself. Stalker can't get the right aerial pressure, and Kevster goes and finds Proper in the back. So this fight gets lost, and you will see after this, Falcons do swap off because second point is much harder to get value out of the Pharah. Now, Falcons actually do play this on a later map the next day against Space Station. Now, what Space Station are actually doing here is they are playing a Reinhardt comp. So this is just like actual pure brawl. It's very much not very spammy. Like this is a Space Station gaming play, right? And Falcons are actually playing that same comp, this time with the Hanzo for more shield break, more pressure on the Reinhardt, more spam pressure on this core. And then again, you'll see very similar strats here. They keep the Pharah up on that corner. They pull the Sigma in whenever he gets too close to the Brawl core and he's in pressure. And they're just trying to kite them as much as possible while they walk up and get as much disruption on them. And hopefully they'll be able to break the Brawl core completely by the time they get all the way to them. And then they can set back up again and again, right? And I think what's interesting about this, here you go, you're going to watch Stalker takes the pedal, of course, and he's just spamming down, trying to find Landon. And this is going to go on for a little bit. They're doing a really good job of keeping them out. I think it's really hard to get the Reinhardt to work on this map. Yeah, again, further and further and further. Eventually, it looks like they do get there. I think Hanbin gets caught out. But crucially here, they don't swap. They actually don't swap off the Pharah. And in fact, they keep the Lifeweaver too. So they are back on this comp. Now they have a more anti Reinhardt tank in Mauga. But the reason I think they swap or they don't swap here, it's just because Pharah is so good against very condensed brawl cores, right? If you can take the backline away from the Reinhardt, even if the Pharah isn't as good on this part of the map, it is still very good into this specific comp, right? Especially against Baptiste, who wants to use Lamp, you can boop him out of Lamp. You can break Lamp extremely easily on Pharah, so it's less of a factor because Reinhardt can't protect the Lamp while they're healing up the resources because Pharah is coming up from the sky. It's very hard to deal with Pharah on these brawl cores, especially without any hit scan pressure other than the Baptiste, no tracer pressure because you need everybody in this comp for it to function. It is much more viable to play this here. I think that this Pharah stuff, it's just anti-brawl, and it's very good against what Space Station are playing. Again, I will have to make a note, like, they are playing this on Circuit Royale because there are there are not a lot of angles to take on this. You cannot play Tracer on this map very effectively. It is very hard. You know, Tracer is very good into Pharah. But if Tracer can't get around effectively, then Pharah can have free reign like this. And Shio is watching the Pharah, making sure she's nice and healthy. He's watching his tank to make sure he can pull him back. Look, you see Mauga overrun there, and I'm pretty sure he gets pulled back by Shio. He's already back in the back line by the time they engage, right? Now, I think Space Station actually do just keep it going. I can't remember if they swap on the last point. It looks like they're going to stay. So they stay this whole map, basically. So that's Pharah Lifeweaver, right? Pharah uses the pedal to increase her game plan. There aren't a lot of angles they can take on her, so she can use it as cover and use it safely and just spam and spam and spam. Disrupt these brawl cores. Basically be untouchable in the air. And just this incredible nuisance that is super, super hard to play against. They're trying to get on the players on the ground as much as possible, but with that pull, that life grip, it's super hard to actually catch anybody out. And when they TP, a good TP from Pharah will get disrupted by that concussive blast. It is very, very hard to play into. Oh yeah, there you go. There's another thing. Barrage, very good into Brawl. Barrage with a pull will actually keep Pharah alive when they use it. Just the amount of resources a barrage can take out, even if you don't kill anybody, it's a lot. Barrage with Cage is also really good. There's just a lot of potential on this map for the Pharah, and they eventually, I believe Falcons barely win this map, but it's a very interesting comp, right? There's actually one more place they played it, before I'm going to go into my analysis of it. Falcons tried to play a Pharah Lifeweaver look on Ilios Lighthouse. Now, spoiler alert, they lose this first fight dramatically and they swap off. But I think the idea here is that Lifeweaver has a really, really good defensible position if he can get himself onto the lighthouse, right? Then he can see both sides of the map. He can see this high ground and this high ground. He can pull anybody from anywhere. He has basically full reign to keep everybody. He can see over top the building, so when Pharah is flying around up in the skybox, he can heal them. When Venture pops out of the ground, he can heal them as well, right? So there's a lot to like the theory about this. I believe this was played. I know Toronto used to play this once or twice in the Overwatch League. They have this Lifeweaver over there. The problem is getting him there, and against a comp like a Winston, it is really hard to get Lifeweaver there without getting jumped on completely. And you know, the lighthouse is a very good defensible position, but it is open space that Lifeweaver has to cross to get there. And Lifeweaver goes down first, so they cannot properly set it up. And we don't actually get to see the full value of this comp because they end up swapping immediately to something a little more traditional. A Winston dive. So basically that is that comp. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to keep playing this map while we're on it. So is this any good, right? Is this viable? Somewhat, right? Like it's definitely like a cheesier version. And I think in this meta, since there isn't like a super duper defined meta, I also forgot to mention that with the Mauga variant, since Pharah can get closer and get out, she can actually get value out of the shout and be able to be in fights longer than you would think she would. Anyways, but basically, is it viable? Is the Pharah Lifeweaver viable? On most places, absolutely not. Tracer will just have a field day. Echo will have a field day, especially with the Lifeweaver, right? Echo is really good into Pharah and Lifeweaver. She can just get around, but if she can't get, if those two characters cannot get around the map effectively, like on circuit defense, or like on circuit attack rather, then that's it. Cooked, right? There's nothing they can really do. They have to play into the Pharah. They have to figure out ways to minimize the Pharah with other characters, right? Space Station do the TPing around, try and get back, eliminate Pharah's angles on them. It worked to a certain degree. I'll go back here and you can watch it more. It worked to a certain degree, right? They do finish the map and they have to go into overtime and everything. So it is doable. I do not think this comp is that super duper good. There is a world where Falcons do hold them here, but I think Space Station had really good adaptations about how to get around this Pharah, right? When do they TP, right? Because also, like, you're kind of trying to bait the concussive mine out, because once that's out, then you get safer TPs on the back. And Sigma kind of gets run over, and you have to force life grip if he gets ran at. So there's definitely a lot of counterplay to this. And it is just like, it is just hard, right? It's like a pub stomping comp, it looks like, in my opinion, right? Like, it takes Space Station a while to figure it out, and it took Ents like two or 3 minutes to figure it out too, but they both were able to get through it. So is it any good? I wouldn't be doing it in your ranked games. That's what I'm going to say. I think it's a lot harder to execute than you think if anybody else takes the pedal other than Pharah. If you don't do all the proper steps, Pharah is probably going to be a little useless. So it is hard. I think it is probably harder to, to execute than we think it is. And it is much more of a cheesy strat, in my opinion. But it's really interesting to see. I love when teams come up with these insanely weird compositions and make them possibly work. You know, we saw some Wrecking Ball this weekend. We saw some Ana Lucio, like it was 2016. Like, you know, we saw a lot of different stuff since this meta isn't like super figured out. Venture came into the mix. Very, very cool. And Pharah, I think, is very good right now. I think she's actually, like, very decent. She goes really well with Mauga somehow, just because getting in and using that shout value, and by the time Mauga shout is over, she can go back to spamming. Like, she can play, like, multiple different types of playstyles. Very interesting, very cool. I'm very glad to see it. By the time this video goes up, the Dallas Major will be over, so if you caught that, that's great. If you didn't caught that and you find it interesting, this video, I would definitely recommend checking out when they start doing Stage 3, and then I believe in Stockholm, they will be having a major in just a couple months, and that will be like the grand finale of OWCS for 2022, so definitely something to look forward to. But that's going to do it for this video. If you like this stuff, I don't do a lot of competitive analysis on my channel, but I kind of would like to do a little more, at least in terms of like wacky comps and stuff. I'm not going to go like super in depth about like why this team won something, but you know, stuff like this, it piques my interest, and I kind of want to figure out like, why did this work? Why was this such an effective play? But anyways, that is going to do it for me. That is going to be twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. I do discussions every single time I go live. This one was a YouTube exclusive, but I do most of the videos live. So if you want to talk to me and chat about what you're seeing and what's going on, I love to get the feedback. I love talking to you guys. If you wouldn't mind doing any of that good YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. It really does help me figure out what you guys want to see, what you guys like, what you don't like. If you like this video, then, you know, maybe I'll give you more in the future. Either ways, if you want to give me suggestions or hot takes or anything like that, my Discord and the rest of my socials are down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.